1971. Legendary boxer Muhammad Ali is set to return to the ring after serving a 3-year suspension for refusing to fight in Vietnam. And looking to generate some publicity and revenue for his big return to the ring, promoters suggest Ali square off against the basketball icon Wilt Chamberlain. And it seems like an odd pairing, but Chamberlain enthusiastically jumps at the opportunity. You see, Chamberlain had boxed in his youth. He was confident that his size and speed would give him the upper hand, the edge over Ali. I'm losing my connection here. Does that work? Yes. In the tail of the tape. There we go. You can see Chamberlain has every advantage. Has a 14-inch reach advantage over Ali. He's a full foot higher than Ali. And he's a full 60 pounds heavier. As Chamberlain said, he could knock out Ali with one punch. His height and speed were all the advantage that he would need. And so a 10-round fight is scheduled for July 26, 1971. The stage is set for a showdown of epic proportions between the two until their pre-fight press conference. Muhammad Ali, he's intent on getting inside Wilt Chamberlain's head that day, and he did so in the most unusual of ways, by whispering. As everyone took their seats at the press conference, Ali started to whisper, "Timber." And when anyone asked a question at the press conference, all Ali would say was, "Timber." At one point, one reporter specifically said, "Ali, what is your specific plan for taking down the tallest opponent you've ever faced?" And all Ali said was, "Timber. The tree will fall." The whispers seemed to be getting under Wilt's skin. At first, Chamberlain just seemed a little bit nervous, but moments later, he left the room with his lawyers and returned to announce that the fight was off. Ali got inside Wilt's head. Wilt had come undone, overcome with fear, and all Ali had done was whisper. The words of a whisperer are like a delicious morsels. They go down into the inner parts of the body. It was a method, actually, that he would return to again in one of his most famous fights. In 1974, in the Rumble in the Jungle, it pitted Muhammad Ali against the great George Foreman. And you have to remember, back in 1974, this wasn't the George Foreman of Foreman grills and cheesy infomercials. George Foreman was not just any boxer. In 1974, he was the boxer who with ease had demolished the only two men who had defeated Muhammad Ali to that point. Joe Frazier had defeated Ali, but against Foreman, Joe Frazier was knocked down 6 times, and the fight was called off in the second round. Ken Norton had beat Muhammad Ali by breaking his jaw. But Foreman, well, he knocked him down 3 times in the second round, ending the fight as well. Ali was stepping into the ring with one of the most dangerous men in the world, a man who had made quick work of Ali's greatest opponents. But Ali, of course, was always the showman. That didn't stop him from using his bravado, his famous bravado before the fight. About Foreman, he announced with poetic swagger, he said, "If you think the world was surprised when Nixon resigned, wait till I whip Foreman's behind. I've done something new for this fight. I done wrestled with an alligator. I done tussled with a whale. Handcuffed lightning, thrown thunder in jail. Only last week I murdered a rock, injured a stone, hospitalized a brick. I'm so mean I make medicine sick." Love it. Ali was always confident. But the world watched in amazement as his confidence evaporated in the first round of their bout. The first few moments of the fight, the two men traded punches, but it wasn't long before Foreman was overpowering him. Ali was forced to cover up, and in that, his confidence broke. When the bell rang to end the first round, something bizarre and extraordinary happened. Ali heads to his corner, but he doesn't sit down like you usually do. He doesn't take a seat. Instead, he just stands there, looking across at Foreman. And you can tell in that moment that he has understood that he can't beat Foreman with his fists. he has to change tactics. And so he does. He changes his punches for whispers. And in the second and following rounds, Ollie, when he comes out, he just leans against the ropes and lets Foreman pound away at him. But while this is happening, what nobody knew was that Ollie was whispering in Foreman's ear. The writer, Norman Mailer, he later remarked that the scene almost seemed intimate. He was whispering in Foreman's ear. He was asking him, "Why do you only hit with your right hand? Your left hand must be weak." And after round of these whispers, Foreman finally changed his hands. He began to punch with his left hand. And with that, in the 8th round, Foreman began to tire. His defensive hand began to sag ever so slightly. Ollie saw the split-second opportunity, and he took it. He knocked out George Foreman. Muhammad Ali had subtly nudged Foreman to make a major error. And in the end, it wasn't so much Ollie's fists that defeated Foreman, but his whispers. Proverbs 18 and 22, we read this: "The words of a whisperer are like delicious morsels. They go down into the inner parts of the body." Whispers and nudges have the power to influence. Sometimes a whisper is more powerful than a punch. Muhammad Ali, he knew how to use whispers with incredible, efficient precision. But he isn't the only one who knows how to use whispers. He's not the only one who knows how to use understated messaging. Today, everyone employs whispers and nudges. You find it everywhere, in marketing, in the media, in politics, in religion, in churches. The power of whispers is hard to ignore. It's referred to as nudging. It's the art of using a subtle voice, a whispering voice, to influence the way people behave and make decisions. One of the primary goals this year at Nexus Season 7, is to help us understand the various ways we are being influenced. Help us discern among the many voices that are whispering in our ears. And in our season, it's going to take us on a bizarre and surprising journey into the vast reaches of influence, from how religion influences us, how marketing influences us, how the Christian path, how the Nexus community influences us, and perhaps even influencers more sinister or holy as well. But for this morning, I just want to begin the introduction to our year by simply examining one of the most effective ways that we are influenced is through the subtle art of whispers. Quiet voices that nudge us to live and behave and believe in different ways. And it can be both a good and bad thing. I mean, consider some of the ways that we are influenced by whispers and nudges today. Marketers use nudging and whispers all the time. I'll give you an example. I do the grocery shopping at home, and I'm always dismayed because the way that Kristen makes up grocery lists is just beyond infuriating to me. She'll write a list of things we need, and the list will look like this. It'll be like eggs, broccoli, soup, tomatoes. It's all over the place. If I followed her list, I'd be going back across the store a number of times. So I like to put it in sequential order, produce, and then you make your way around. She made up a list, and what she's begun doing is writing specifically on the grocery list in capital letters, "No chips." No chips. But then, "chocolate, please," underneath, right? Because she likes her chocolate. And she began the kids involved. She's got the kids on board with her. "You can't eat chips, Daddy. They're not good for you. They're not healthy for you." So I always take Zoe and Huxley with me to the grocery store. I got my list. I'm heading to the grocery store. No chips. That's on the list. I walk in, and the very first thing I see in my shopping cart is this. Now, Crispers are not chips. Right? They're advertised as not quite chips, not quite crackers. So right away, I'm already primed. And then, of course, I see the sign. And what does it say? $1, regularly $3.29. And then I love this last part. Limit 10 per person. Now, the sign is saying one thing, but it's whispering something completely different. What it's whispering is this: you should buy these now because look how much you'll save. Limit 10 per person. What's it whispering? The sign. These won't last forever. You better stock up while you can. And so I've been perfectly primed. They're not chips. I'm saving $2.29 a bag, and I can get 10 of them. And so that's what I did. I got 9, because I'm not an animal. I'm not going to go with 10. I got 9. I got 9 bags, 3 of each flavor that I liked. I got 9 bags. You see, the sign had said one thing, but it was whispering something completely different. Marketers do this all the time. Or consider the way in which the media whispers and nudges us. Media influences us by determining what news stories, what information is available and visible to us. When the media makes something available, when it makes it visible, they're subtly whispering to us, this is the thing you should care about. Or this is the thing you should fear. Or this is the thing that should be top of mind for you. For instance, which is more common, homicide or suicide? Now, if you're anything like me, your initial response would be what? Homicide, of course. And this is how whispering in the media works. Because the media makes homicide available and visible to us almost every single day on the news, it leads us to the incorrect belief that homicides are more common than suicides, when in fact the opposite is true and by a considerable margin. New York Times write this about the United States. When Americans think about deaths from guns, we tend to focus on homicides, but the problem of gun suicide is inescapable. More than 60% of people in this country who die from guns die by suicide. That's shocking to me. Same goes here in Canada. Canada's Department of Justice notes this. In Canada, 80% of firearm-related deaths are suicides. I mean, consider these absolutely staggering numbers. These are the only 2 years that I could find solid stats for here in Canada. In 2009, there were 610 homicides versus 3,890 suicides. 2012, 543 homicides versus 3,926 suicides. That is staggeringly tragic. Yet, when was the last time you heard about suicide on the news? What the media highlights is homicide over suicide, and by doing so, what it's doing is whispering this. Homicide is what you should care about. That's what you should fear. That's the real concern. And yet, it's not. Or consider politics. A vast majority of things we hear in politics are manufactured words designed to speak on different levels to each of us. One of my favorite illustrations of this comes back to 2008. I love it. It's brilliant. In 2008, Barack Obama was running against John McCain. And whenever Obama addressed John McCain in public, he would begin with these words, I want to honor and thank John McCain for his half-century of service to our country. Kind of brilliant. Because what he was saying was thank you. But what he was whispering was, this guy's old. This guy's really old. Do you want to vote for someone that old? This guy is PC, I'm Mac. This guy's old school, I'm the new school. Thank you for your half-century of service. What Obama was saying was very different from what he was whispering. Whispers and nudges are everywhere, so subtle we fail to realize how effective they are. And it doesn't have to be all bad. Sometimes it can be incredibly good. The voices and whispers and nudges that we hear in the world can do very good things for us. Consider a grocery store in Texas tried to subtly direct people towards healthier food choices with a wily sort of whisper. What this grocery store did was this. They installed mirrors on the front of shopping carts, so that while you're shopping, you can see yourself shopping around. And the subtle whisper was this, look at yourself. And what happened? The store noticed a spike in sales of produce, and junk food sales declined. And what they think happened was this, as people watched themselves put junk food in the cart, the mirror whisper was, look at yourself. Do you really want to be that person? And people put back the chips. I really could use this for me. It's subtle but incredibly influential. Or in Virginia, one store divided their shopping carts and said, put produce here. One half was designated for produce, leaving only the other half for everything else. It was a whisper, your cart should be half full of produce. And what happened? Produce sales shot up by 102%. A simple dividing line acted as a whisper. Eat more fruit and veggies. And people, okay. Everywhere we are being whispered to. We are surrounded by so many voices trying to influence us. Externally, we are bombarded every single day with voices clamoring for our attention. Billboards, television, magazines, the internet, ideologies, religion, the arts, pop culture, celebrities, on it goes. And they all want something from us. Give us your money, give us your support, give us your sympathy, allegiance, attention, participation, admiration. It's not easy to discern the voice of truth among the many voices that call to us. And the weird thing is this, those are just the external voices. Perhaps even more worrisome are the whispers that come from within. Our internal voices like to make truth claims of their own. We consider the relentless whispers we face internally. There's, of course, the voice of personal grandiosity within each of us, our ego, our self-interest, always pss, 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 pss. We're not altruistic by nature. We come into this world instinctually self-centered, narcissistic. We're concerned, first of all, with our own well-being, our pleasure, our comfort. And as we grow into maturity, we, of course, learn, right, that the voice of self-interest isn't exactly life-giving, but the voice never seems to go away. Then, of course, there's the voice of wound and rage. It was a bizarre summer how many conversations I had this summer that helped me reflect on my own woundedness in life. Reflections on relationships, friendships that have drifted apart. And you tend to stuff that stuff down, but inside each of us, there's this voice of woundedness that's always there. People who've hurt us, circumstances in life that have hurt us. And I'm inclined to think of this, by the time we're adults, nobody comes into adulthood whole and intact. By the time we're adults, all of us have suffered our share of wounds. It's not a question of whether we have been wounded in life, it's what has wounded us and where. And the voice of woundedness is always calling to us, speaking very subtly, whispering to us, you should feel distrustful. You're a victim. You've been slighted. You've been offended. You should be angry. You should be vengeful. Nobody is immune to this. It's within all of us. And the voice is forever telling us paranoia, anger, frustration. That is what protects us in life. And then there's, of course, the voice of failure, regret, guilt, and shame. Those voices always going on inside. Look at how you messed up. You should really be regretting that. Guilt, shame. Reminding us all the things we should have done differently. Reminding us of the things we should feel embarrassed of. I was driving in the car with my kids the other day, and Zoe said, hey, your birthday's coming up. How old are you turning? I said, I'm turning 36. I'm getting old, bud. And she said, yeah, you look old. And then it got worse. She's like, yeah, you look old. She said, you might die soon. Then we're going to have to get a new daddy. I don't know, in that moment, all of my life choices, all those chips and stuff, I just was like, looking in the mirror, I'm like, oh my goodness, that stung. I'm like, yeah, okay, bud, sure. Keep it together, move it on. But there's these voices inside of us always going, look at you, look at the mistakes you've made, all the things you should be regretting. There's the voice of archetype, genetics, ethnicity, gender, right? I mean, the blood in our veins is an influential voice. It's never fully silent. It's always whispering. We don't enter the world a blank slate. We're stamped by our DNA, and both physically and psychologically, this is always this powerful voice inside of us. I mean, have you ever caught yourself doing something very similar to your parents, and you go, where did that come from? It's your DNA, genetics. Or have you ever found yourself doing something very stereotypical, something stereotypically male or female, and you go, I don't know if that's me. I just feel like I'm playing a caricature. Yeah, because those voices are always there. I feel like we're drowning in a sea of voices. We're adrift in an ocean of whispers, and with all these voices, all these whispers, both internally and externally, might God's voice be found somewhere amidst the clatter as well? Among all these voices, is God perhaps whispering somewhere in the middle of it all as well? How do we recognize God's voice? How do we discern God's voice? Among all the voices that surround and sort of beckon us and clang around in our head, how do we discern the unique cadence of God's voice and whispers? There's two stories in Scripture that really intrigue me on this. The first is a metaphor that Jesus uses in the Gospel of John. This is what Jesus says. John chapter 10. Very truly, I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees, of course, did not understand what he was telling them. This passage, Jesus is referencing a common practice of the day, a common practice among shepherds. What they would do at night, shepherds would come together with their flocks, and they would put them into a common enclosure, all of the sheep. Then when the morning came, they would separate the sheep by using their voices. And so each shepherd had trained, and that's the key, sort of trained his own sheep to tune into his voice. And so in the morning, a shepherd would walk away calling his sheep, sometimes by name, and his sheep would follow him. But of course, shepherds were devious. And what they would at times do is attempt to imitate the voice of other shepherds so that their sheep would follow them. And if you could do a quick voice impersonation, you could easily win yourself more sheep, which meant more money, with very little trouble. A well-trained sheep could tune into the unique cadence of its shepherd's voice, though, but it took time to develop this skill. Shepherds had to spend so much time with their sheep training them this way. And it's sort of a big part of what we're hoping to do this year, train ourselves to listen for the unique cadence of God's voice among many of the whispers that are competing for our ear. There's a second story that I love from Scripture as well. This is one of my favorites from growing up. It's always been in my head. I love it. It's the story of Samuel, who's serving in the temple, and he hears the voice of God. I'll take you through it. The boy Samuel ministered before the Lord under Eli. And in those days, the word of the Lord was rare. There were not many visions. One night, Eli, whose eyes were becoming so weak that he could barely see, was lying down in his usual place. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the house of the Lord where the ark of God was. Then the Lord called Samuel. Samuel answered, "Here I am." And he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am. You called me?" But Eli said, "I did not call. Go back and lie down." So he went and lay down. Again, the Lord called, "Samuel." Samuel got up, went to Eli, and said, "Here I am. You called me?" "My son," Eli said, "you're annoying me. I did not call. Go back and lie down." Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord. The word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. A third time the Lord called, "Samuel." Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am. You called me?" Then Eli realized that the Lord was calling the boy. So Eli told Samuel, "Go and lie down. And if he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. The Lord came and stood there, calling as the other time, "Samuel, Samuel." And Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." I love that last line so much. Speak, your servant is listening. This story, I think, has so much instruction to offer us, how to sift through the competing whispers and voices in our ears. I mean, what I love about this story is the way it sort of plays out. What I love about Samuel here is that we find him in his regular routine. There's nothing special going on. It's not like he climbed to the top of some mountain. He didn't go for 40 days in the wilderness to hear from God. No, he's in the middle of the ordinary, mundane routine. He hears from God in the middle of the daily grind. He's just doing what he had been doing for days, weeks, possibly years. He's where he should be, doing what he should be doing. He's living a life of service, and then like every other night, he just goes to lie down, and there in the mundane, the ordinary, he hears the whisper. But then, I love his mistake. He hears the voice of God among the other noises of the night, and he can't understand whose voice it is. Sounds familiar. In fact, you could say it sounds like a lot of other voices. It wasn't like God sounds like James Earl Jones or Morgan Freeman. It sounded ordinary. It could be any voice. He mistakes it for his mentor, Eli, who happens to be in the next room. And then I love that it's at this point that Eli realizes he needs guidance. To hear from God, Samuel needs the role of wisdom, the voice of a guide to properly channel his listening ears. And heeding that wisdom and instruction, his ears are open. Finally, he's really listening. Among all the voices, the noises, you could say Samuel has sort of focused in. He's tuned into the right frequency. He's now ready to receive. His ears are open. I would say that this is my hope for this year. We would learn to discern the voice of God amidst all the other voices and whispers that come to us from both outside and inside. My hope is that we would come to realize how many voices are competing vigorously for our attention, our energy, our allegiance. We come to understand more fully how under the influence of all these voices we really are. Dave Thompson has made a mind monkey doodle of all of the voices we're going to explore this season. It's out in the lobby there as well. I just gave him a list of influencers and voices we're going to talk about over the course of the season, and he made this, and I love it. It's brilliant. I hope you'll take a closer look out there. Because the reality is we're under the influence. We're under the influence of so many whispers in life. But in the end, what I hope is this, that like Samuel, we would learn to find the right frequency. Tune into that. It's going to take the voice of wisdom. We'll all need plenty of guidance, but my hope is that we continually come to a place where tuned into the heart and voice of God, our posture would be like that of Samuel. We would be able to say, speak, your servant is listening. And I can imagine some of you going, whoa. Getting a bit mystical here, aren't we? Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I'm convinced each of us in this community, we could use a healthy dose of mysticism in our lives. And I can already imagine that some of you are thinking, Brad, do you honestly think God speaks? I'd say this, no, I'm not sure God speaks, but I do suspect God whispers. Let me illustrate it this way. Do I think the CRISPR sale spoke to me? No, but I do think it whispered. Do I think the media is saying we should ignore suicide? No, but I do think they're whispering it. Do I think Barack Obama said people shouldn't vote for McCain because he was old? No, but I do think he was whispering it. Do I think carts that have mirrors on them are telling you to stop eating junk food? No, but I think they're whispering it. Do I think carts that have a dividing line saying produce here are telling you specifically to eat more produce? No, but I think they're whispering it. Do I think God is going to speak directly to you or me or us? Probably not. But I do think God whispers. And the season is about sorting through all the voices and whispers and influencers in the hopes of hearing the whispers of the divine. So I hope you will join us for the year. I hope you consider being a part of this journey, maybe inviting someone who might benefit from this community, the journey that we're going to go on. I hope you will jump in and travel with us. And like Josh mentioned earlier, on Tuesdays, we're going to have this Nexus Connect thing. If you ever want to chat, hang out, we can talk about Sundays. We could talk about whatever. We can just enjoy beer, whatever we need to do. Just a reminder that that is on Tuesday nights, and we'd love to see many of you out at that. But just as I close here, before I ask Murray to come up and pray, I did say in the Nexus Weekly that I'm going to be doing this every week. So I wanted to give out the prize. If you don't know what I'm talking about, sign up for the Nexus Weekly. There's an old Togolese saying, when you see a frog squatting in its home, this is the right answer. This is the actual proverb. When you see a frog squatting in its home, don't ask him for a chair. Makes sense. Now, a bunch of you sent in your own endings, and I have the pleasure of giving out the winner this week. John Benjamin's, where are you? John Benjamin's. When you see a frog squatting in its home, don't forget to compliment the frog on the window coverings. Frogs are notoriously self-conscious about their choices in drapery. Yes. And John, what you have won is a bag of crispers. So, I have that in the back for you. You look forward to one of those every week. Congratulations, John. I'm going to ask Murray to come up and close this here in prayer, and then we'll be on our way. Welcome to Season 7. Great to see everyone back. I'm excited about our coming weeks ahead.
Thanks, Brett. Let's pray. Please follow along. It will be up on the screen. Lord, you know the many whispers that, when heard together, drown out your loving, soft voice. Whispers that are forgiving, genuine, innocent, caring, and some not. Those whispers and sometimes shouts are seductive, coercive, violent, sad. Amid all these whispers that together can deafen us and pull us in so many directions, help us to remember the voice of the true shepherd who is fiercely for us, who serves and is generous and who abides with us always. May we, like Samuel, find a way to wait peacefully and expectantly for your whisper, a whisper that will become familiar. Give us good ears. Give us grace and courage to listen, to answer, to care, to rejoice, so that we may be more fully yours. Truth-telling, life-giving Spirit, help us present ourselves over the next season of teaching, to hear your whisper, to receive instruction and guidance. May your whisper become a clearer voice as we commit to hearing you. Breathe your story of death and life, that our story may be submitted to your will for our life. Help us to wait with eager longing. Help us to wait amid doubt and anxiety. Help us to wait patiently. Help us resist the doubt that makes us take all of life into our own trembling hands. We sense that our restless hearts will remain until we rest in you. Help us to find the beginning of peace in the understanding that you have all knowledge of who we are, with all of our struggles, and yet you love us like a parent loves a child. Your whispers gently guide us to a life that matches what your creation meant us to be, and as we listen, we sense the truth of where you are leading. We pray each of us travel in mercy, that we be on our way rejoicing, arriving in wonder, love, and praise. Amen. Go in peace.